Lo-Fi Horror Guys Growing on Your Life, Season 14 is sponsored by Toxic Coffin. Toxic Coffin is two horror-loving dudes, Lance and Steven. They make horror and Halloween goods to explode your brain. Each shirt is curated with its own experience to make you stoked on your favorite movie or time of year. Follow Toxic Coffin at toxic_coffin on social medias or at their shop at toxiccoffin.com. Once again, at toxic_coffin or at their shop at toxiccoffin.com.
All right,
Hey.
man. What is going on, man? How you doing?
All right. Can you hear me okay?
I can perfectly.
Great.
Now, let me say first off, thank you very much. I understand you're under some tiring circumstances, but I so appreciate you taking the time today, my man.
Oh, dude, no worries at all. No worries at all. And if I seem tired, sorry about that. I just wrapped on a film last night, so I slept a couple hours. I'm doing all right.
Dear Lord. Well, I mean, that's awesome. You just wrapped on something, so very cool. You know, having something else kind of in the works here. So very sweet, awesome. I love that. Here on the show, basically, I have an introductory question, and then the remainder of the interview is about you and your craft, your career in film, and then I have one finale question that I wrote just for this episode. So if you're all comfy and ready to go, my man, we'll get this bad boy started.
I'm ready to go.
Let me ask you, if there was a local drive-in theater that was doing a double feature with Dementia Part 2, what would be the second act?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say because of the tone of the film and the nature of the film and the way we made it, I would go with something like Little Shop of Horrors, maybe the original, The Little Shop of Horrors, the Roger Corman film.
Okay.
Yeah, something short and breezy and quick and cheap and cheaply made. I think the spirit in which the movie was made sort of would dovetail nicely with that one. Maybe that or like a Val Lewton movie, something else short and quick and black and white.
Right to the point. Yeah. Nice. I love that. Good answer. I can definitely surely appreciate that. I thought it might have been something along the lines of like a Brain Dead, Dead Alive or something, but
that would work.
Shop of Horrors would go great. That'd be a good couple.
Yeah. I mean, I think tonally, I think something like Dead Alive would work as well. Like, I think, based on Suzanne Voss's performance in the movie and the way that feels, and any early Sam Raimi or Peter Jackson would fit nicely as well.
Totally. Very cool. So let me ask, as far as kind of scaling it back to, in your younger days, your youth as a kid, what were movies, maybe even horror, not that resonated with you early on?
Yeah, well, I think my gateway horror movie was Jaws for sure. When I was like a really young kid, that really resonated with me, and it scared me a lot, but also piqued my interest and made me want to see other genre films. This light is like blasting me in the face, but there we go. So that was kind of my gateway horror film, and I know some people. I mean, it's kind of an adventure horror film, but I remember asking my parents at the time, like, what's the scariest movie you've ever seen after I saw Jaws? And I think my mom said Halloween. So that was my next one. And that kind of sent me on a path, I think Halloween was especially resonant because it takes place in a suburban neighborhood. And it feels like it could be your neighborhood. It could be anywhere, it could be happening right around the corner from you. And so that one was really, really frightening. And then from there, I went to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Alien, Evil Dead 2, just all of the classics of that time, the late 70s, early 80s, and then got into the grimier stuff. Like the one that really bothered me as a kid, I remember, was for some reason my dad let me see this movie called 10 to Midnight, which was
Oh,
A Charles
yeah.
Bronson serial killer movie, and shouldn't have, that was one that sort of I wasn't bothered by horror movies as a kid, but that one sort of crossed the line for me. And it really, because it's basically about a serial killer who has to be he has to be naked to kill people, and it was really bothersome, and I couldn't sleep after that one.
You're like, man, are there really people out there like that? Like, it's bad enough I'm getting killed, but yet alone, from a naked dude,
Yeah, some naked dude gonna stalk me. What is this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh God,
yeah.
that's
There's this one
horrible.
scene in that movie where the killer, the movie has a climax where the killer comes into this house where all these women are living, and there's this woman cowering in the shower, and it's so disturbing. And through the frosted glass, you see his silhouette slowly walking up to the shower, and that got me more than anything.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, J.
yeah,
Lee
and
Thompson
that is a
was
really, I
responsible.
mean, okay, yeah. I
He
was gonna say
directed it.
that
Yeah.
is one. Thinking back to that scene is pretty creepy. It's like kind of goofy in that sense, like you
Yeah.
mentioned with it being naked murder or whatever, but
Yeah.
kind of having like a little bit of that psycho vibe to it, but a different angle. Seeing somebody coming closer. It's yeah that's a good point. I'll have to watch that one. It's
Yeah.
been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a minute for me too, and I don't know that I don't think it's a great movie, but it really was effective to me as a kid. Yeah.
Nice. I like that. When so as far as like when we're kids and we have these these movies that we just love and these characters that come to mind. Were there ever any like Halloween costumes that you just really would have loved to have seen at the Halloween store and never it never came to fruition at all?
Yeah,
Like a
well,
movie character?
for sure. Yeah, when I was a kid, I did become very obsessed with the Alien franchise, and
Nice.
there was one Halloween where I really wanted to be the Xenomorph. I wanted to be the creature for Halloween, and that costume just didn't exist. It was impossible to
Right.
find, and so I desperately wanted to be the Xenomorph. So I begged my mom. I must have been, I don't know, 6 or 7, maybe 8 years old at that time. So I begged my mom to figure out how we could get a Xenomorph costume because we couldn't buy one, and we ended up making one. So I did end up
Oh.
getting to be the Xenomorph, and I would crouch on the front porch and scare other trick-or-treaters, and I had this strobe light I would turn on. I had a strobe light I would turn on when they would walk up and jump out of the dark. But we ended up making it with like an old like tomato basket, which was like, or like a gardening basket, which was really long. And we
Oh,
put,
okay.
I feel like we put a bunch of like pantyhose over it or something and kept stretching them over it again and again so that we could make that long head. We put 2 styrofoam bowls together on the back to make the back of the head and cut more styrofoam for the teeth and just made this whole thing from scratch. Made the tail out of some kind of rubber tubing. And it was like,
Damn.
I had a very kind and attentive mother who went through this process with me to make this thing. So yeah, that's the one that springs to mind.
Oh man, I love it.
Yeah,
And I love that you got into like describing it too, and that it actually came about, and you actually went
yeah,
into like making it because I started thinking of that. And I'm like, God, what are you gonna do? Like, cut up a couple of like cereal boxes and try to fit them over your head, or
yeah.
like,
Basically,
how's that
yeah.
work? But that's
Basically,
awesome. That's
yeah,
so cool. And it's like nowadays, there's a little bit more of a, you have online and there's a lot more opportunities. But when you're like younger, it was like a lot of that stuff you just had to make if you really wanted it. And you
yeah.
walk around and the majority of people didn't even know what the hell it was. But it's like, I tried.
Exactly. Yeah. Very often, these things would turn out like unidentifiable. But I think most people understood what I was trying to do. Every Halloween, I would try to do some sort of. It just got more and more elaborate. And one year, I had seen Night of the Living Dead, so I created a whole haunted attraction in the front yard with zombies. I mean, nobody wanted
Oh
to
man.
join me in this event, but I I basically had played Night of the Living Dead, and I had a tape recorder, and I recorded, a cheap Radio Shack tape recorder, and I recorded the television record the announcement from the movie and just played it on repeat, and I would slowly emerge from the shadows again and from the woods next to my house with other friends as zombies when trick-or-treaters would come to the front door.
Damn.
You know,
Wow,
trying
that
to
sounds
frighten
sick.
people. Yeah, oh, it was so stupid.
No, that sounds awesome. That's cool. You know, every once in a while you have that too when you know you're going trick or treating or different things and somebody has some cool setup stuff and then you have somebody who's
Yeah,
like coming from behind the house and their head's off or something. It's like that's
yeah,
cool. You know,
yeah. I
you
wanted
grow
to
up
have
and
the best.
you want to be that guy.
Yeah, I wanted to have like the best scare in the neighborhood. You know.
Nice. So
Yeah.
touching on scares and different things as far as still while being young, what were some irrational fears that developed from horror movies? And even if you can think of how'd you get over them?
Yeah, I saw a movie. Well, one was again, 10 to Midnight developed some irrational fears, but of just some weirdo coming in the house, which is so strange. Like nothing much else scared me, but that one got to me. I do remember there was a movie that, by today's standards probably plays pretty dated and goofy, but as a kid, I developed a somewhat, I don't know if it's entirely irrational, but a fear of spiders from this movie called Kingdom of the Spiders. Do you remember this movie?
Oh yes,
Yeah,
totally,
with
totally.
yeah, it was this movie with William Shatner, and it was directed by this guy, Bud Cardos. And it's basically about a small Texas town that gets overrun with a strain of tarantulas that are particularly aggressive. And I mean, it was a mid-70s kind of movie, but I was pretty afraid of spiders after that movie, and in particular, like sitting on the toilet or being in a car and not being able to get away from the spiders because the movie the movie puts people in these situations where the spiders trap people in small rooms. I mean, like, there's this one scene where a guy is flying a plane. It's actually an amazing scene, where this
Yes,
guy's flying a crop duster. Do you remember this? This guy's flying a plane and the spiders are in the cockpit with him,
like the
and
cockpit with them. Yeah.
they're suddenly all over him, and he can't get them off, and the plane crashes. And it's an amazing scene because the plane crashes into a gas station, and I actually got to talk to the director about it one time and asked him, "How did you do that?" And basically, they built a replica of the gas station on a cliff, and the plane did a nosedive. It looks like the plane nosedives into the gas station in the movie, but it
Uh-huh.
actually flies past it into a canyon because they built the gas station on the edge of a canyon so it could fly
Oh
past it.
wow.
And
Okay.
when it flew past it, they set off an explosion, which is incredible. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Spiders. I had an irrational fear. I had to get over that.
Yeah. No, that's it. That's a sweet story. I've never heard that before. Wow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing. They built a replica of the exterior of the gas station on the edge of a cliff so that the stunt pilot could fly past it into the canyon, but make it look like, from the side where the way they shot it, that made it look like the plane just flew right into the gas station and blew up.
dear Lord. I mean,
Really cool.
I'm imagining that pilot, had worked on maybe Star Wars, and they're like, let's see your credentials here. What do you got? Because we need
Yeah.
some tricky shit here.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he had to be very well trained. I mean, that's not something a regular pilot would want to try to attempt.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
So as far as digging into once again kind of the younger days and digging into your local video store. If we were to
Oh man.
close our eyes and just imagine the sights and the sounds and the smells. Tell us about your local video store and maybe even some movie covers or posters that come to mind.
Sure. Well, the sort of mom and pop video store that we would rent VHS tapes from when I was a kid was called Rent-Tainment. Very creative name.
Nice.
Rent-Tainment. Yeah, and it had a yellow sign that looked like a spool of, or a piece of film, a spooled out piece of film. And yeah, I would go in there, and I was, like I said, obviously super into horror as a kid. So I would rent movies or want to rent movies based on those crazy covers.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I mean, one of them I see behind you there, Critters, was one I desperately wanted to see because of the cover, which was
Hell yeah.
the bigger Krayt standing there, you know,
Yeah.
looking at just grinning with rows of razor sharp teeth. But yeah, the video store it had, you know, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was one of those setups where all the videos were lined up on the shelves. It was a pretty big store, but you would take a tab off of a hook. If the movie was available, there were tabs for, like, a pink tab for VHS and a yellow tab for Betamax. And if it was available, you would
Oh,
take the
okay.
tab off a hook and take it up front to get the movie, which was in a clamshell case behind the counter, or what they would call it, you know, those
Nice.
plastic cases. They would call them clamshells, I think.
Yep.
And remember that? Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to think of the cover art. Critters was one. Evil Dead 2 had that skull on it. Actually, Halloween 2, anything with a skull on it was really cool looking.
Yes.
Evil Dead
Yes,
2 had a
totally.
skull, and I always wanted to rent that, although I was pretty late to that one. I didn't see Evil Dead 2 for a long time, but Halloween 2, I watched pretty early because I was just obsessed. Halloween's like my favorite franchise of all time.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
Halloween 2 had the pumpkin with the skull in it, and that one just
Yeah.
ignited me. I was like, oh, what? You know, because the first one had that great art with the knife as part of the texture of the
Like that.
pumpkin, the knife, the handling
Right.
the knife.
Right.
And the sequel with that skull and the pumpkin, I was like, oh, what happens in this? You know, it's just, I love that iconographic sort of imagery. You know?
Right. Right. I
Yeah.
was looking because I have a figure over here. I thought it was right next to me with the Halloween 2 cover art on it, but it's
Yeah.
not right next to me. So I was going to
Ah, oh, yeah.
no,
Okay. Yeah.
and that's totally, you know, that's one of those really cool things for back in those days, you know, where it was that gamble where you walk in and you see something with an absolutely sick, just really cool cover, and you're like, man, I
Yeah.
just hope that this is all the money I have. I hope that this is a good
Yeah.
one.
Oh, yeah. And
And then
very often they weren't. I remember one, I mean, the covers, the more elaborate the cover, yeah, the more elaborate the cover, usually the crappier the movie. There was one, because of Jaws, I would rent any shark movie, and there was this one,
yeah.
I want to say it was a Roger Corman, might have been a Roger Corman produced movie, maybe not, I can't remember who produced it, but it was called Up From the Depths. And Up From the Depths had this amazing cover art of a woman in a bikini. I hope I'm remembering this right, but she's trying to swim to the surface, almost like the cover of The Deep. And there was this
Oh, okay.
really bizarre looking shark right underneath her. It was a total ripoff of the cover of Jaws or Piranha or any of those. But it looked so cool. And then the movie itself, the creature was like this rubber looking thing. I mean, you barely see the thing in the movie. It's just ridiculous. That one was a
Nice.
letdown. But yeah, you always were promised so much by the covers, you know.
Totally. You know, and with the animals attack one, that was because that was honestly probably the first horror movie I'd ever saw was Jaws as well. And so, you
Yeah,
know, when it came to kind of exploring that, and you had alligator, or you had like killer
ugh,
crocodile, or
yeah,
grizzly, you know, those movies were always,
yeah,
and I think it stuck with me because it was like, I can be out in the woods and have this giant ass grizzly bear right behind me. Like that, those were some of the things that always, you know, scared me. And just seeing like the mauling, and it's like, oh, this is horrible.
yeah.
I don't want to watch this
So for
anymore.
you, it was the right. For you, it was the animal ones.
Loved them. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
still
like
to this day, I'm a sucker for that.
yeah, same. I love those covers. Day of the Animals was a good one too, with just
Oh
all of the
yeah.
animals attacking on the cover.
Is that with Leslie Nielsen?
Yeah. He goes
Yeah.
crazy in it.
Okay.
Has that crazy bear fight in it. He just decides he
Yeah.
can fight a bear.
He's like
Yeah.
shirtless or some shit.
Yeah, he's shirtless fighting a bear. Yeah,
Oh my god.
pre-comedic Leslie Nielsen. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Ridiculous. Nice.
that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
If we can dig into three scenes from either horror or sci-fi that are just forever ingrained in your brain, what would come to mind? Just ever since you saw them, they're just so disturbing or gross or even silly.
Yeah. Well, I'll go with, since we were talking Jaws, and the first one that comes to mind is the attack on the guy who's in the rowboat in the lagoon with the kids.
Oof.
There's this overhead shot when that guy gets attacked of the shark underwater biting his leg as it pulls him down. And that is one of the most terrifying shots in cinema history because you see the shark just enough. I mean, that whole movie, the shark never works, so the whole movie's about what you're not seeing. But you see just enough of the shark in that shot that it looks completely real. And that's the first one. That scene in that particular shot, I think, is so startling because it leaves so much to the imagination, but you're really also seeing this thing take the guy down.
Right.
And I don't think the shark ever looked better than that in the whole series. Another one that got me as a kid because it helped. I suddenly understood the power of editing. Is this? I mean, everyone talks about this scene, but the shower scene in Psycho, because the editing is just crazy in that scene, and
Totally.
It's very startling because not only because Janet Leigh was a star at the height of her star power at that time, you thought that she was the lead of the movie, and suddenly she's killed, but it's also so violent because of the editing. It's like, oh my God, this is like so. It's not. You don't see very much of anything.
Yeah.
You see some blood going down the drain, but I think there's 75 cuts in that scene that Hitchcock and Saul Bass worked out. But it's such a. I don't think anyone had used montage editing in that way before.
Oh,
so that's
right.
the other
Okay.
one. And then you said 3, right? 3?
Yeah. I mean, you
Okay.
had mentioned earlier with like 10 to Midnight, even if you want to include that, because that's a good one as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with. I think my third one. I would go with the scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre where Marilyn Burns is pushing her brother in the wheelchair through the woods, and it's pitch black. I think they must have lit the scene with one light. You can't see anything. And Leatherface comes bursting out of the woods. That's so scary because it's shot on a long lens, and he looks so huge next to them. Also, and the timing is so off. Like when he comes bursting out of the woods, they've been walking through the dark woods for a while, and you're so uneasy that whole movie. You don't know what's about to happen, and suddenly he's there. And they shoot it on this long lens, so the space is very compressed, and he just seems so big over them. And then he saws this poor guy up who can't get out of this wheelchair. It's just that's indelible. That's just fused into my brain. Like to this day, when I watch that movie, I probably watch it at least once a year, every couple of years. That still startles me, that moment.
Absolutely. I can totally agree with that too. And I think it's even something too where, Sally, when she's in the shot and all of her screaming just adds to like the unsettled feeling with it too, where it's like, it's bad enough all this is going on, then just some of like him screaming and her, and then the chainsaw, you're just like, this is overwhelming.
It's overwhelming.
Far past the first time you've watched it still. So yeah, that's a good choice as well. I always love that one. And even in part 2, when he pops out in the record shop.
Yeah,
love it.
That's the equivalent shot in that one. When Caroline turns on the lights and he's just comes running out of the record room. It's like, whoa. This guy loves to scare people before he kills them.
He's a little big for moving so damn fast. Dear Lord. So as far as your interest, so your interest in film, where was kind of your introduction into working on film, or kind of thinking about like, maybe this would be something I would want to do. What were some of the first things that you did breaking into that?
Yeah, well, like I said, I grew up loving films and thought I didn't know how films were made, but I thought that was something I wanted to do. And then I started acting in high school, and I kind of went down that path. So I went to acting school and was theater trained. I did a lot of stage work starting out.
Okay.
But always in the back of my head, I was thinking about my love of horror and wanted to do horror movies. So
Mm.
when I got out of school and I started auditioning for things, I would target horror movie auditions in particular, which I didn't know anybody else who was doing that, like targeting indie horror films to audition for. So I would push to get those, and I think it was working on the first couple of those that I saw how they were made. And I'm talking these were micro budget, small movies. Like the first one I did was the first horror movie I had a fairly big role in was this slasher movie called Madison County, and it
Oh,
was
okay.
yeah, and it was a very low budget movie, but I realized that it was just this group of friends getting together to make a movie with no money, very little resources we were shooting in Arkansas, and that kind of brought me back around to like the idea of working behind the camera again, and that it wasn't some mysterious thing. It was just a matter of like making a list of everything you needed and breaking the script down and putting it together.
Mm.
And that's when I started jumping back behind the camera. I started making shorts around then.
Okay.
And not long after that, the director of that movie needed a producer on the next movie he made, or one of the next movies he made, which was this movie Contracted, which I ended up co-producing and also acting in.
Yeah.
And that got me back. That's what kind of kicked off producing and directing stuff for me.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Now you were also, you mentioned shorts. You were also in God, let me think of what this was called. Uh with Chelsea Stardust, right? You were
Yeah,
in. So
she directed.
how did you come to that project, or come to meet her?
Yeah, there's so Chelsea is a friend of mine. The horror community is pretty small in LA. I mean, not small, but it's pretty tight. And
Yeah, right.
yeah, the short you're talking about is called Marco Polo.
Marco Polo. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a
So I don't want to cut you off, but I was like, I have to fucking think of this.
yeah, no,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
okay. She I think she just called me, and I was aware of Chelsea because we had mutual friends, and we'd met each other at a couple of like horror events and things. We'd known each other for a little while,
Oh, okay.
and we were always trying to find something we could work on together. And then I was just fortunate she reached out to me for that. I do remember we met. I wish I could remember where. It was some cafe or something in the valley, but it was me and the actress who plays my girlfriend in that. We just met up
Yeah.
and just talked about it, and Chelsea was like, "Yeah, let's do this." And that was a blast. We basically shot it in one night in a pool in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
and I think it was the first time I've worked in the water. And I remember they had to have like special gear for the camera to make sure the camera didn't get wet or short out or anything like that. But that was fun, and it was Chelsea's boyfriend at the time, Sean Keller, was ADing it, and Sean's son played the
The
creature in the
monster,
pool.
right?
That yeah,
Yeah.
Folsom
Yeah.
played the creature. That was just a really good time, and Chelsea's a good friend. So I think I got that because she was aware of me from other movies, and I was aware of her as a director,
Right. Okay.
and she's a great director. I don't know if you've seen her last couple features, but
Absolutely.
All
Yeah.
That We Destroy is great.
I had her on, and we had
Oh,
talked.
cool.
We had talked that short, and it just like all of a sudden dawned on me because I remember seeing like on your like IMDb page and different things. I was like, oh shit, why didn't I think about like to mention something with this? Because that creature, for just being a short, like so cool. I absolutely love that, and like I talked to her for quite a bit about that too because I'm like, this is so sick. Like I wish this was a full movie, but yeah. So very
Yeah,
good.
that
Props
was
on that one.
yeah. Oh, thanks. It was fun, and yeah, I think the it's a great concept too, and the jump scare really works well in it. The big reveal of what's going on, and that was also one of those things where she really just amassed a group of colleagues and friends who were all like super talented. It was just a great group of people coming together one night to make something really quick. I remember my friend Danny Manning was doing the production design, and Steve Imhoff did the makeup. I mean, just great. It was a great group.
Sweet. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So now, most recently, I wanted to mention, well, maybe not most recently, but I wanted to, we're going to dig into Dementia Part 2 as far as, the
Yeah.
shooting and just the process with it was very unconventional. Tell us
Yeah.
about the circumstances and how you felt those may have benefited the project.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. It's interesting question. Yeah. So I'll start with how it began. I was at, excuse me, I was at a film festival in London called Fright Fest UK. And I was walking down the hall of the cinema where it happens, or one of the two cinemas where it happens. And this producer who I've worked with in the past, he was one of the producers on Contracted, actually, JD Lifshitz, came running down the hall toward me. And he was like, Matt, do you want to be in this movie? And I was like, what are you talking about? What movie? And he was like, well, he basically said he had just been around the corner at this pub that everybody goes to while that festival happens, called the Imperial. And he had been talking to this guy, Josh Goldblum, who runs a film festival in Chicago called Cinepocalypse.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And basically, over a beer, Josh had dared him to make a movie to fill the one remaining slot at the festival that he hadn't filled. He was like, we'll call it the Filmmaker Challenge. I mean, just crazy. Yeah. He was like, we'll call it the Filmmaker Challenge, but you can't start working on the feature until we announce the schedule of the festival.
Damn.
And JD was like, great. And so immediately he goes to, I'll try to make a long story short. JD came to myself and Mike Teston to actually make the film. And so about 5 weeks before the festival happened, and when they announced the schedule, they just announced us as this unmade film going to be shown, directed by Matt Mercer and Mike Teston. So I think we had 5 weeks total to make it from script to screen. So I think we wrote it in like 3 or 4 days, shot it in 5 days. It was prepped for about a week. Wrote 3 or 4 days, prepped for a week, shot for 5 days, and then spent the rest of the time editing and sound designing, and then just showed whatever we made.
Damn.
So that's how it, that's how it was made. And it's up to the audience to decide whether or not it feels like that's how it was made. Because, I mean, you can certainly feel, it's obviously not a super expensive movie. We made it on a tight timeline, tight budget. I think part of the reason that it's worked for people, or that people have liked it, is because it's so, you can feel the fun we had making it. Because again, kind of like Chelsea's thing, it was just getting a group of friends together and making a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And on that timeline, you want friends around. You don't want any new components thrown in.
Right.
You want people who are cool with this whole thing. And, people like, the cast, Suzanne Voss and Graham Skipper and Najara Townsend. They're all, Mike and I, my co-director Mike and I, have worked with them countless times, and we knew that they would understand the tone and be in the spirit of it, despite the fact that they got the script the night before we started shooting, things like that. But I think in terms of, you had asked, sorry, that was such a long-winded answer, but you had asked, how did that benefit the project? I think Mike and I came out of it learning and understanding a completely new concept of economy of filmmaking. Like, all of a sudden, we had to, making a movie that fast, it's compressing the timeline of a usual movie by 10 times 10. You have to do everything so much faster. And so I think we learned a new level of efficiency on some things, and really what you absolutely need to make a movie and make it work. For example, I'm not saying we would always do this, because you want to have some flourish and some style in whatever you make and make each thing a little different. But because of the timeline on this movie, a rule that we made for ourselves was no scene, with the exception of like an effects shot or something, no scene could be more than 3 shots and no more than 3 takes before we had to move on, because there was no time there was no time to do more than that. Or, if we did, we wouldn't finish the film. on time. So stuff like that, I think we just learned the economy of what you really need.
Sure.
And what you really need is great collaborators, because none of it would work without those actors I just mentioned. Like Graham, Suzanne, and Najara are so talented and kind of went with the flow.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
that's
And
really what you
I
need.
think it's even a compliment too, as far as the story, being the foundation of everything. You having good material, and then you have something like that where the actors come in and you already know that they're going to do a good job, and they're putting good stuff to screen. I think that just adds that much more. But I can only
Yeah.
imagine that adds a different stress to things when it's like, I've only got 3 takes to do this. So especially for like an actor, you're like,
Yeah.
hope I don't fuck this up.
Yeah, it's weird. It adds stress, and I was particularly stressed because even though Mike and I co-wrote it, I didn't know my lines that well. So I think someone off camera was always, in case I went up on something and I couldn't remember a line, someone would feed a line to me.
Okay. Okay.
So there is stress there. There's simultaneous stress and freedom. Because on one hand, you're like, am I going to remember my lines, and are we going to pull this off? And on the other hand, it's like, you know what? The stakes are pretty low. This is probably going to be shown at this festival, and that's it. This won't go anywhere else. So,
So,
so we can have fun. On
yeah,
the other hand,
totally.
the stakes aren't that high. We're just having fun. I never dreamed that the movie would actually get released like it is now, which is great. But it's like, oh, well, this is a bonus. Everything from there is a bonus. It's
Totally.
gravy. Yeah.
So now you guys it was initially released to the film festival. Is it just recently getting released, like as far as like online with streaming and all that? Because it seems like it's like brand new just to streaming platforms and different things. Does it have like a physical release, or is there anything as far as with that in mind?
Yeah, it did just get released through Dark Star Pictures and Bloody Disgusting, which is great.
Okay.
Yeah, basically,
Cool.
we played a string of festivals, starting with Cinepocalypse, and we kept getting surprised at how many festivals it was getting into. It got into some good ones, and then it just sat there for a while because no distributor wanted it. No one knew what to do with it because it's this weird black and white horror comedy that feels kind of freewheeling and strange. And then, to our surprise, eventually Dark Star Pictures picked it up about, I don't know, it's been several months now, and they wanted to put it out, and they have a partnership with Bloody Disgusting and Brad Miska, which is cool because they release 4 titles a year under that banner, under that partnership.
Right.
And the cool thing about that is, yeah, we just came out June 1st on VOD. So it's like on iTunes and Amazon and Google Play.
Okay. Yeah.
But there is a physical release coming too. Part of that partnership is they do a limited release of Blu-rays. So I'm really excited about that.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm excited about that because we did some cool special features. Mike, my co-director, and I did a drunken commentary that I think was pretty fun. And so yeah, there's going to be some fun stuff there. So yeah, it is.
That's awesome.
It's out. Yeah.
Sweet. Very cool. Yeah, and that was kind of the thing when I initially looked into it, and we had kind of I had talked about it, having you on the show, and
Right.
I got to watch it, and then I see it's from 2018. I'm like, wait. I guess I'm gonna have to go back and scale back a little bit because I don't know the whole story here. I was like,
Yeah.
this is like brand new, But I mean, really, really cool, and I'm glad that it got the attention, and I'm glad that it got the draw that it has, because after watching it, I absolutely loved it. And you mentioning even in interviews as far as your love for Sam Raimi and early Peter Jackson and different things. While being under a different circumstance, as far as, time, budgetary things with Sam Raimi, that was always, an earlier thing too, but the passion and the love was always there. And I think that's what bled through with this as well. And anybody that's watched it, any of my friends that have watched it have all said the same thing. So kudos for sure. It worked.
Oh man. Oh man, that means a lot. Thanks. Because that tone, obviously on a smaller scale and on a budget, that was the tone we were we were aiming for. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
nice,
that's
nice.
cool. That's great. I'm glad it works. That's the sort of icing on the cake is that a lot of people have said that it actually works as a movie for them. I was like, great,
Yeah.
because the way we made it was so fast. We weren't sure what we had. I mean, I think our script was 54 pages long. And again, with those actors, they brought a lot to it, and we fleshed it out and added things through improv and things like that. But the fact that it's working for people is a real treat, you know?
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
And I think it, it gives a little bit of a different staple too in the fact of you have, movies that have a multi-million-dollar budget and four people watch it, so it's like I think it's really a thing with the passion behind it and the love, that, bleeds through and people, draw to that. So
Yeah.
definitely. And I've been telling a lot of people and I was trying to stray from like messaging you or being like, dude, I absolutely love this. Just to
Oh,
not
no,
like build it
please.
up too much beforehand, but yeah, it was so sick. I loved it. Tell us about
Thanks.
working with this the Russells. So on the
Oh,
practical
yeah.
effects on this bad boy, you work with those guys again, and then as well, is it Mayra? I forget the last
Mayor
name
Beta,
though.
yeah. A beta,
So
yeah.
okay, and she also worked on the special effects, correct?
She did, yeah. She did the old Herald prosthetics and makeup,
Oh,
and then Josh and Sierra provided all the other materials to us. Yeah, it's funny. I was hanging out with Sierra last night because the movie I'm working on now, which we just wrapped last night. That's why I look like this, by the way. I don't normally have a giant beard and long hair. I'm trying to keep it at bay with this with this hat. But this movie I'm doing now, I grew my beard out and hair out. But I'm working on this thing now with Josh and Sierra again, and they
oh
said to tell
man,
you hi. They said it because they said they knew you.
yeah, very cool.
Um, yeah, but working with them has always been great, and I think I've worked with them on I don't know how many movies now, 10 or probably 10 or
Quite a
11.
few, yeah.
They've killed me a lot, basically. They kill me frequently. Um, in the case of Dementia Part 2, it was made so fast and the budget was so low that we couldn't really hire them. But I know them well enough that I called them and I said, I have come up with these really basic gags, cheap gore gags for this movie that I think will work, but I don't have
Mhm.
all the materials I need. Do you have anything I can can I borrow these things? And I listed the things out. And they were like, yeah, come on by the shop. So I went to their effects shop and they kind of just let me raid their shelves. And I got, I got organs and limbs and a head and some intestines. And they sort of guided me on their blood recipe to an extent. And I think they even gave me some blood to use. Um,
Oh, okay.
so that's sort of what they did on this. And they advised me on how to execute some of these gags. And then with Mayera, I've worked with her a lot too. She did all the effects on the Contracted movies. She's
Oh,
incredibly
yeah. Okay.
talented. If you've seen those movies, like she's very talented. And
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
this, she had done the makeup effects on the first Dementia as well. And our executive producer, Raphael Margulies, plays Old Harold in the movie. He's like in his mid-20s. And she turned him
Oh,
into an
wow.
old man for this movie. And basically, I don't even know how to tell this story. This movie is just one in joke after another. But in the first Dementia, Raphael played this old man for no reason. He played this old man in a hospital hallway who has one line. He says he gets wheeled by in a wheelchair, and Mike, my co-director on this movie, directed the first Dementia, which is
Right.
a very serious psychological thriller. Nothing like this movie has nothing to do with Dementia 2, except Raffi played this old man in old man makeup who has one line. He gets wheeled by the camera and he goes, "Hurts," and I think it got cut from the movie. But we used his continuity Polaroid from that movie as the old Harold photograph on the mantle in this movie because we thought it was funny for no reason. And then when it came time to shoot the nightmare sequence, we were like, well, let's get him back in the old makeup. So we called it Mayera, and she was like, I think I remember how to how I applied that makeup. And we had her put him back in that makeup for that nightmare sequence where he rips off it. There's the scene in Dementia 2 where he pulls his own scalp off. It's so
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
And so that's what she did on this movie, on Dementia 2, is she did the old Harold stuff. So between Josh and Sierra and Mayra, it seems like we had this big makeup effects team on it. They did, they just came in and did little things, or gave me some tools to use.
Yeah.
But Josh and Sierra have killed me countless times. I think the first time I worked with them was on a movie called Beyond the Gates, where my head explodes.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, okay.
they blew my head up in that. Yeah.
Old Jackson, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
The Jackson Stewart classic.
Okay. Yeah, there he is.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I'm eagerly awaiting something new from him as well, for sure.
Yeah, he's working on a bunch of stuff.
Graham's in that too, right?
He is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's all coming together now. All right, the circle. I hear you. All right, it's coming together.
Yeah.
So along
Graham,
with the oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say Graham and I think did that in the Mind's Eye back to back around that time. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
So as far as with Dementia Part 2 as well, so the visuals, obviously the practical effects that were in it, were just something. All the slime and the ooze was disgusting, but the sound department I felt like played a really big role in this as well. Just with cringing kind of sounds that were like nails on a chalkboard, disgusting. Tell us what went into some of that.
Well, a lot of that was just sound design that I came up with very quickly in the post-production process during the edit. There was no money for anyone else to do it, so I ended up doing a lot of that. And there's a combination of sound effects from like library stuff that I have as part of my job. My day job, I work as an editor a lot, so I've over time amassed a lot of effects.
Shit.
So I would take, and I would just take things I had in my library or things that I got from a good friend of mine who's an editor, Josh Ethier, provided some effects as well, and I would just sort of combine all the squishy effects that I have and try to come up with the nastiest sounding things. And generally, if I was questioning if it was too much, I would then raise the decibel level of the slime sounds even more, just to let people know what kind of thing this was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then I made some sound effects too, because some stuff was really just didn't exist. I couldn't find it. Like trying to think, like there's a scene in the movie where I pull some kind of rodent or animal out of a drain.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find. I remember having a really hard time finding a sound effect of something. Like something getting pulled out of a pipe, like an echoey pipe sound or something kind of that sounded crushed, like it was inside of a pipe.
Okay.
But getting dragged through the pipe. It's hard to describe what I'm talking about, but something getting pulled from a pipe. I couldn't find that.
Without it being like a Three Stooges sound effect or something.
Yeah, something that just exactly like something that didn't really exist, like something that was too much or didn't work, and I wanted that to sound pretty real. So I just went to my kitchen and I have this Zoom recorder, and I started trying different objects, like a Brillo pad or a sponge, just trying different things actually doing it through the pipe. I Foleyed that effect, and that's what you got to do. Just make your own shit sometimes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, well, I can't find it, so I might as well make it. That's.
Yeah.
And I mean, bringing back the old alien costume, you just gotta put yourself in it and try to make it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet.
Exactly.
Did it? I mean, do you recall? Did it end up being like a Brillo pad or something, or was it a sponge or something?
It was
working, or was it a collaboration of things?
It was a collaboration of things. I think I ended up combining an effect I had anyway with it wasn't a Brillo, but it was like a steel wool type of thing.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. It was like steel wool I was pulling out of there. I mean, there's a lot on top of it too. There was some slime and other effects, but I do remember I also, to give it kind of a dragging sound, I think I also put like the sound of a a cinder block or like a brick or a cinder block getting dragged across concrete, and I slowed it way down. You slow it
Oh,
down and it
wow.
sounds more uh, deep. It just got deeper. I pitched it down and slowed it down and gave it some reverb to make it to give it more gravitas, you know.
Yeah.
So that when
Okay.
you're watching it, you're like, what the hell is he pulling out of the out of this drain? And really, you even when the thing gets pulled out, you still don't know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
What
Yeah.
is
You're
this
like,
thing?
what is that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
I think it was just the actual thing we used that we pulled out of the drain was like a cat toy that I found at the 99-cent store, and we just covered it in ultra slime, and that was it.
There it is. All right.
Yeah,
So sometimes it's the things that are on hand that you can, you're just like,
that's
well,
it.
I don't have any other use for this. My dog's not here anymore, so I'll just use this.
Right, exactly. Yeah. What's cheap and on hand?
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
So as far as you had mentioned before with the visual aesthetic with Dementia Part 2 to look something like a Twilight Zone episode, if you could
Yeah.
remake any episode of the Twilight Zone, what one would you choose, and what would maybe even be a lead actor, actress cast for this?
Oh, wow. Excuse me. Well, one of my favorites, because I feel like it was so innovative for the time when they made it, and it's one I would love to do and see if I could put a slightly different spin on it, is Eye of the Beholder. That's a
Oh,
great episode where this woman has had surgery after an accident, and
yes.
you don't see her. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat. Take a sip of the old coffee here. You don't see what her face looks like. The entire episode is her point of view, and she has bandages on her face. So you don't see the people who perform the surgery. You just hear them, and through the bandages, you maybe see like their hands or their feet or different things in the room, and you don't see. It's all her point of view, so you don't see her face. And then the big reveal at the end of the episode is they take the bandages off of her head, and you hear the doctor say, "Oh my God, we failed. She's hideous," or something like that. And the camera finally shows her, and she's gorgeous.
She's
She
human.
looks, yeah. You've seen
Yeah.
this, right? This episode.
Oh
It's one of
yeah.
the more
Totally.
well-known ones.
Totally.
And she looks fine. She's human. She looks great. Turns around on the doctors, and they're all these weird-looking creatures and that like gnarly faces. So obviously, Eye of the Beholder, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. That's the reason for the title.
Right.
And I feel like there's got to be something there. It'd be fun to do a spin on that. In terms of who I
Sweet.
cast, I have no idea. I'd probably just put my friends in it again because
Yeah. Yeah.
just cast Najara or somebody because I know that they'd be down for whatever we were doing, and they're good and they're great actors.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And that's such a good, good choice. I mean, there's tons of really good episodes that are out there too. And you mentioned that one, might be one of the
yeah,
ones that's a little bit more popular, but there's a reason. I mean,
yeah. It
when
works.
the first time watching that, and it turns around, it pans around at all the doctors and their creatures, you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, I mean that show is the still king of the twist, and
So good.
also that's not easy to do to sustain your attention for that long where you don't see anything.
Hmm. Hmm.
I rewatched it probably about a year ago just to see what they did to pull that off because it's pretty impressive, especially for that time. Um, I feel like I was listening to some interview. I want to say it was like Joe Dante or somebody I was listening to in an interview recently, and he was talking about episodes of Twilight Zone where it seems like every seventh episode when they couldn't come up with what to do, the twist was always it's small people in a giant world. The world they're in is just fake. It's either aliens
Oh,
have
yeah.
created a fake world, or it's a kid playing with a board game or a model, and people are. Why are these earthquakes always happening? Oh, it's a kid playing with a model. It's like every seventh episode they weren't sure what to do, and they just did that. Some
Nice.
variation on that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. That was something
Um,
that came to mind too. When I was thinking of episodes, and there was one that was very much like that, where
yeah.
like he was the last one on Earth, and they're trying to figure it out, and they pan out, and it's like they. But Yeah, that's a good choice. I love that one. That's good.
Yeah.
If I could ask, if you could have, as a horror fan, as a film fan, if you could have any one prop from any horror film ever, what would you have for your own personal collection, or just something to have in the house?
Oh man. Whew, that's a good one. I would go. Well, hmm. I, I am a huge fan of the Halloween franchise, and I think I've seen a picture of it, so it probably still exists. But the original, one of the three, I think they made three for the movie. One of the original Kirk masks that they sculpted to turn
Yes.
into the Myers mask. That would be cool. I mean, they're, I'm sure, absolutely decrepit at this point and rotted.
Yeah.
Um, I know I saw a picture of one recently. Uh, my friend Rachel is watching this, and she just said Christine. Do you mean the car, Christine, Rachel? Like you want the car,
That'd be
the
sick.
entire car? That'd be pretty rad.
I just found out
Um,
yesterday they're remaking that.
yeah, Brian Fuller's doing it. Pretty cool.
Oh,
I
no
wonder if
shit.
it's still
Wow.
going to be, if they're still going to use the '58 Plymouth Fury, like that kind of car, if they're going to update it. She says yes, it would be the actual car. Ooh, the liquid. Someone said the liquid Satan container from Prince of Darkness. That's a good
Ooh,
choice.
that is a good answer. Holy
Oh,
moly.
yeah.
Shit.
I've heard that is a great choice. I've heard that container, I feel like on the commentary, Carpenter says that it weighed so much it was almost impossible to move around. So you would have to have like a crane. You have to get a crane to have it lowered through your roof or something. It'd be tough to get in your house. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think one of those masks. I just think it's so cool that Tommy Lee Wallace, who was the production designer on that movie, like that was they just went and bought these Kirk masks and made the eye holes bigger and painted them, and such a simple thing, and that mask has become so iconic. It'd be neat to
Yeah.
have one of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. I'd love that. It'd be a shame,
Yeah.
like for some reason that came to mind, if you had, found one online and, they say, "Yup, it's the original one," and it gets to your house and it's from like Resurrection or some shit.
Oh God. Yeah, like the word. Yeah, the one in
You son of a
Resurrection.
bitch.
Yeah, man,
Uh,
Resurrection. Don't get me started.
yeah.
I want.
What did you think of the newest ones? Or the 2018 one?
Oh, I liked it.
Hmm.
I think what's missing from it, I like what they tried to do. I like what they did with the Laurie Strode character, and there's definitely a level of reverence there that's pretty cool. And I like the obviously David Gordon Green and Danny McBride did a really good job with little callbacks to the
Hmm.
first film.
Yeah.
Everything from him looking over the balcony and she's gone, all these great little things and great story points and characters that refer to the original. And I think in the next one, it seems like they're going to do even more of that. Like more characters are coming
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
and the original actors are playing them. So I think that's cool. So that, and there's a lot of things I liked about it. I feel like the one thing missing from it for me was um, the style. Halloween is so intertwined with the way it looks and the way it was shot on those first two movies
Hmm.
with the Panaglide and the Steadicam and on 35 millimeter in scope, like in anamorphic, shot on anamorphic lenses, so it has that really um, cool looking depth of field to it. And I feel like the color and look of the new one wasn't quite right for me. I'm such a elitist snob with the Halloween movies, though.
Well,
I'm
I mean,
such
I
a
ask
snob
that of
with them.
somebody like myself just being a
Yeah.
fan, but you like working in film and different things like that. That's what,
Yeah.
why I wanted to ask, just because I mean
What
that
did
different angle is cool.
Yeah, what did you think of it?
Honestly, the only thing I felt like the comedic points of it were
Mm,
like the downfall of it. That's one of those things where I
yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
love. I love movies that are more of a comedy than they are horror. But you
Hmm.
have to, there's that balance where, sometimes things might feel a little bit pushed, and there was a couple of moments that there's some things that I didn't feel like it was necessarily, but
Yeah.
the long panning shot where he's like walking to like the
Oh,
different
it's great.
houses, and
Yeah.
just, I mean, how utterly like just angry and violent that was pretty impressive. I mean, I really dug
I
that.
love that. Yeah, I
But
love that. That felt like a lot of the stuff from Halloween 2. I love that shot where it tracks
yeah,
behind him, and there's very few cuts, and it goes from house to house. That is awesome, and I totally agree with you. I think a certain amount of comedy it works great, even in the
yeah,
Halloween
totally.
films. There's some great comedic beats in the original, in
Hmm.
the first one, but yeah, the timing on some of them in this one didn't quite work for me either. In particular, the scene where he's in the closet, spoiler alert, but where he's in the closet, the babysitter scene with the little boy that she's babysitting. That kid is great and she's great and the scare is great, but the scare is undercut by the kid's reaction.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's a funny beat, but I feel like it undercuts the scare and the moment.
right.
You know? Yeah, I
Totally,
agree. I agree with you. Yeah, yeah,
totally. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Uh,
you're never gonna match the first one, and I appreciate what they did with it.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Totally.
I'll take any Halloween movie and keep making them. It's the one franchise I'll show up for, even if it's the Resurrection. As much as I hate that movie, I'll show up for any Halloween.
Yeah, nice,
Yeah.
nice. Well,
Yeah.
dude, this is wrapping up our interview here. I do have one finale question, but
All right.
this is your opportunity. Your time if you want to let everybody know kind of what you have going on or where to check out the movie. Once again, your socials. This is your opportunity, man.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, thanks. Dementia Part 2 is out right now. It's on VOD. Blu-ray is coming soon. And it's available on iTunes or any of the Google Play, any of those outlets. And then the Blu-ray is coming soon. And if you have a Blu-ray player and you collect physical media, which you should, and I collect physical media, there's a lot of great special features on the disc. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mercer Shark.
Nice.
Shark. Mercer Shark is my handle, just like it sounds. Yeah. That's
Very
all I have
cool.
to plug right now. I'm working on something now, but I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Sweet.
So
I
the
love that.
director is a party pooper. You won't let me talk.
That's it's even better. Sometimes I think that's one thing. It's nice having the YouTubes and the different things like that, but I think that's one thing I do appreciate on some angles of different movies that are coming out where it comes out and it's one trailer and it's like go watch the movie, or it might be a poster and a short thing or something like that. Go watch it to see the rest. There's some things you watch like some of the bigger superhero movies, and it's like there's 6 trailers before the movie even comes out. It's like, well, what am I not going to see by now?
Right.
So the secrecy I like.
Yeah, the trailers just reveal too much. I mean, that's another thing. Getting back to Halloween 2018, that I feel like that trailer was cool, but it did give away a lot. I wish trailers didn't give away so much. The best trailer, my favorite trailer of all time is the trailer for Alien, because it's just this montage of images that make you want to see the movie and reveal like little quick bits of story beat, but you have no idea what that movie's about. But you're like, oh, I have to see that. It's terrifying. It's such a weird, cool trailer,
Totally.
And no one does that anymore.
Do you remember the
Everything's
trailer
so
for
good.
Maximum Overdrive?
Oh yeah, with Stephen King narrating, with the Halloween 3 theme. It's like music from Halloween. Yeah. It's like, I'm gonna scare the hell out of you. Yeah. It's so stupid. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. But I mean, by then you're like, what am I gonna see? Like, what is this even about? I'm just gonna watch you for an hour?
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah. I love that movie for so much, but I don't think it lives up to the promise he makes you in that trailer. I'm gonna scare the hell out of you. You didn't quite do that, but very very entertaining. You're like, what is that about?
All right, so for this finale here, so I wanted to ask, I was trying to think of a couple of different things here, and you even mentioned some of the movies that may have inspired the movie, but going back even early on, thinking of when you're first starting, to make movies and different things like that, a movie that you loved in your youth that you would say the source material, the material is great, but the effectiveness wasn't all that well. If you could go back and remake a movie that had a great idea, but the movie sucked, what would Matt Mercer bring?
Yeah. The one I always go to that I've brought up recently on another podcast is Chud.
Oh, yes.
I love Chud. I think it's a good movie, but it's not a great movie. And that's the kind of movie that I think should be remade. Like let's actually pick something that has a great concept, maybe some great effects, has some great moments, but it's not. It didn't really all come together.
Yeah,
fully.
yeah.
Because Chud has a lot of good stuff going for it. It has a great cast. I actually, as much as some of the people on the film criticized the creatures at the time that John Caglione made, I like the creatures a lot. I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty rad, but I don't think that movie entirely works, and I think that's a movie that you could do a lot with, and I've thought about that a lot, like what I would do with that,
Sweet.
There was one, I actually did a podcast. There's this podcast called the New World Podcast that they're watching all of the New World Pictures movies and talking about them, and they had me on as a special guest for the Chud episode because the guy Ryan, who is one of the hosts on it, knows that I like that movie.
Okay.
And so I kind of dug in a little more to see, has anyone tried to remake Chud? And someone has. There was a writer, Zach Stens, was hired by whoever the rights holder was a few years ago to do a script, and I asked him about it, and his idea was like the script that he wrote, and it obviously ended up not getting made, was a heist movie where these people go, basically a bunch of bank robbers try to perform a heist on an underground bank vault, but they have to go in through the sewer. And while they're trying to do that, they get blindsided by Chuds. So it's basically like like Die Hard meets Chud underground. And he described this one scene to me where they're lowering a guy into a pit to get in front of the vault. And as he's going down, he's describing what he's seeing, and you don't see what he's seeing. You just hear him, and it just gets worse and worse what he's seeing. And then he gets attacked, and the rig starts getting pulled, and it just sounded awesome,
dude.
Yeah, it would be really, really cool.
I mean, that's one thing where I can appreciate some of the remakes and different things like that. And man, I wish I would have heard that you had spoke on that too. But that brings up a good a good just point as far as some of the remakes that are being made. I don't quite understand when there's movies like that. And you mentioning that, God, that sounds so sick. That would be so cool. I hope something like that comes about because that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it would be really fun. I feel like Chud is one that could still make a great movie and hasn't been done.
Man, good answer. I love that shit.
Yeah.
There's always Bud the Chud if you're a fan of those movies.
Yeah,
Bud the Chud. I love that one.
Yeah, it has one of the best theme songs written for a movie ever. It's so insidious, and you can't get it out of your head when you listen to it. And it's just someone going, Bud the Chud. Bud the Chud. It's a really good song.
Yeah, it's catchy. I mean, here we are years later still talking about it. Shit.
Yeah.
All the organs and all that. All you need is a voice and a microphone, I guess.
That's right.
Look, man, I'm gonna let this end on that note. I really appreciate your time. This has been absolutely awesome, and I'm looking forward to whatever next project you got coming up. And this will be edited, and I'll have this up on YouTube here within the next couple of weeks, and I'll send you the link and everything like that. But thank you very much first and foremost for your time. This has been amazing, man.
Oh man, this was a blast chatting with you. Thanks for hitting me up.
Yep, awesome. Absolutely. Thank you once again. Lo-Fi Horror Guy, my dude, Matt Mercer. Check him out. You stay safe, my man.
You too. Take care, man.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi, lo-fi a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.